I bought this tractor from a Monsanto employee who bought the tractor directly from them. They purchased this tractor in 1960 when it was just 2 years old and used it very sparingly to haul a slag trailer back and forth over the last 60 years. Now the hour meter on the tractor says 85 hours, and that's very, very, very hard to believe, but everything's original on it. Original tires. You can tell it just doesn't have many hours on it. It drives perfectly, it steers perfectly, the linkages aren't worn out. Now Monsanto happens to have a couple of plants not very far away from me. I had to drive about 40 miles to get this tractor. And I'm not personally a fan of Monsanto, although I'm not mad at the many people in this area that probably work for Monsanto because it's a good job. Now I know that they maintain this tractor very well, as any industrial company would, so I'm not worried too much about it. The only thing that it really needs is the 3-point connections on the rear of the tractor were removed and some very heavy weights were reinstalled to manage the weight of the slag trailer. You can see the handmade muffler on the tractor, and that and the fuel tank are the only two things that have ever been replaced. The fuel tank rusted out, and they had a tank that was handmade by a local fabricator, I'm guessing. But other than that, everything's original. And like I said, you can just tell that it hasn't been used in the way that most tractors are used around here. Most tractors are just worn out from being used on farms and dairies, and you can see that in the steering, you can see that in the brake, you can see it in the clutch, you can see it in the hydraulics, and this does not have any of those signs. I picked this thing up for $1,100, mainly because nobody wanted it without the 3-point connection. I'll have to track down those parts. I've already found most of them on eBay, but I'm going to try and find them locally before I have them shipped. Again, I'm not a huge fan of Monsanto as a company because of how they treated a lot of the mom and pop farmers in the Midwest when it came to soybeans and patent infringement. But I know they likely took care of this tractor in a very systematic way, and I'm certain it was never abused just because of their safety standards. The guy that I got it from said that as employees they had to bid on it, and the highest bid purchased it, and he said that he didn't use it hardly at all because he had a 4-wheel drive tractor. Now you can see the hour meter actually says 85 hours, and there's no other numbers in front of that. While I had it running, I watched the tachometer move around just enough to inspect it to see if there were other numbers, and there's nothing there. So it's very possible that it really only has that many hours on it. It doesn't seem likely. But what the guy said, I bought it from a Monsanto employee who bought it directly from the company. What he said was everything's original. Tires, everything's original on it. And you can just look at it and tell that it hasn't been used and abused. They put their lights on it, their safety lights. It's got a seatbelt on it. I love this rollover bar. That'll stay there. I wish it was diesel, but again, who cares? It's about a 50 horsepower tractor. But the price was right, and part of the reason the price was right is because they had taken the 3-point hitch off the back. So I need to track down those parts and get those reinstalled. But everything should work fine. The pump inside the pumpkin there should still be fine. It's never been used, but it is missing some of the 3-point parts. Okay, so this tractor is almost identical as far as looks to my last tractor, and actually the horsepower rating is about the same too. The Ford 861D that I had before this, I loved that tractor, and this is comparable. It's a little bit lighter in horsepower, and the transmission's a little bit different, but it's the same series, so all the parts are interchangeable. I'll clean this up a little bit. This one's clean enough. I may restore this one and actually paint it to where it looks original. It's just in really good shape. I've already listed my other International 350 for sale. I've gotten a couple of texts on it. We'll see how that does. But I'm getting tractor rich here and cash poor when I keep spending money on these things, and so I need to get some stuff sold. But you can just tell by the steering. This thing doesn't have hardly any hours on it. It does not have power steering. I guess that's if I was going to complain about one thing, I'd complain about that. But this is going to be used for grading and mowing, and that's about it. My other tractor had so much slop in the steering, so that to me is obvious. The neutral safety switch still works. Just all of the things that you would look for in a low hours tractor, this thing seems to have. So I think I'm going to polish this thing up. It sat out in the sun more than anything else. They replaced the fuel tank. They actually replaced the fuel tank with an aluminum. A local welder built this tank for it because it just sat and the tank rotted out. And they also replaced the muffler on the other side. If you look over here, you can see some welder's idea of Ford. I'm thinking that's Ford Motor Company. I don't know what else he's trying to say with his muffler there, but that's a handmade muffler. That's kind of cool. So I'm going to clean this thing up a little bit and get it up to the ranch as soon as we can. It's a little bit muddy up there, so it may have to stay down here for a while. But I think it was a good buy. I'm going to pull those weights off it, try and find the 3-point connections for it, and get it up there to use to grade with. I really like the idea that it's got that roll bar on it. I can put a sunshade on that thing for the summertime. But I'm happy with it. I think it's a good buy. So.